5. A 1957 Plymouth Belvedere. In 1957, the state of Oklahoma turned 50, and to honor this celebration, the city of Tulsa decided to leave a time capsule for the inhabitants of Tulsa 50 years in the future. And what more fitting item could they choose than a 1957 Plymouth Belvedere Sport Coupe, brand new and painted in gold and white. Along with the car went hundreds of entries into a competition, which asked citizens what they thought the population of Tulsa would be in the year 2007, when the capsule would be opened again. The winning entry that was closest to the population number would then win the time capsule car. 50 years to the day, on June 15, 2007, the car was dug up from the ground as journalists looked on to photograph this monumental event. The car was swiftly taken to the Tulsa Convention Center for its grand unveiling with Boyd Connington, the star of TLC's American Hot Rod on standby to get the Belvedere running after 50 years of being stored underground. However, tragedy struck when it came to the car's condition. Despite being sealed away in a time capsule that was essentially engineered to be watertight, when the workers were excavating the car, they realized that several feet of murky water had managed to infiltrate the capsule over the years. And as a testament to the sheer amount of water that had gotten in, residual marks left on the inside of the capsule and on the car itself showed that levels had easily surpassed the height of the car in multiple stages. The unveiling of the clearly water-damaged and rusted car was not one that the people of Tulsa had hoped to see. Some of them even shed a tear to see what had become of the vintage Belvedere. Sadly, it seems as though the Plymouth Belvedere is beyond repair, and instead of being a white and gold beauty, it's an eyesore, meaning that many automotive museums have declined to take it on and exhibit it. As for how much damage the water's done, Dwight Foster from New Jersey's Ultra One Mechanics took a look at it and said that it was like dealing with paper mache rather than metal, making it too fragile to do any work on it at all. 4. Penicillin. One of the biggest discoveries in the field of medicine was actually a complete accident. Alexander Fleming had come back from his summer holiday in Scotland in September 1928, ready to start work again as the resident bacteriologist at St. Mary's Hospital in London. He wasn't the kind of man to leave things neat and tidy when he left, so his lab was in quite a mess. However, amongst this mess, he made a groundbreaking discovery. Fleming had been cultivating Staphylococcus bacteria in petri dishes, and he noticed that on some of them, another bacteria had started growing. The area around this new mold was free of Staphylococcus, and where the mold had surrounded it, the bacteria had started to go transparent in the process of dying off. Fleming tried other different types of mold to see if they had the same effect, but it was only the original mold, which he identified as Penicillium notatum, that was able to kill off the other bacteria. Naming it penicillin, Fleming had accidentally found the world's very first antibiotic. And in his own words, he even said, "When I woke up just after dawn on September 28, 1928, I certainly didn't plan to revolutionize all medicine by discovering the world's first antibiotic or bacteria killer. But I guess that was exactly what I did." However, Fleming would not be the end of the story for penicillin, as despite finding it, he was unsuccessful in isolating it into a pure form to use. He gave up on the endeavor in 1931 and promised to send his studies and the bacteria to anyone who wanted to take the project on. Ernst Chain and Howard Florey from Oxford University picked up the torch from Fleming, and they managed to do what he could not, finding out the best conditions in which the mold grew and then isolating it. It was then that the true power of penicillin truly became apparent. Amazingly, their studies and testing found that it could kill off bacterial infections in mice with little to no side effects. Then, in 1940, the first human to be treated with penicillin was a man named Albert Alexander. After scratching himself while pruning a rose bush, an infection seeped into his body, leaving him dying with painful abscesses on his eyes, face, and lungs. After being administered with penicillin via an injection, Alexander started to make an amazing improvement from being at death's door. Sadly, though, there was simply not enough penicillin available at the time to be able to continue treatment, and he died shortly afterwards. This, therefore, prompted the next dilemma for the production of this new so-called miracle cure, and that was how to create a large enough and ready enough supply. To treat a single case of blood poisoning, it required 2,000 liters of penotatum mold culture fluid to generate sufficient pure penicillin. American pharmaceutical companies then took on the task of mass-producing penicillin, just as the United States entered World War II. The quest for a fungus that could yield more penicillin per liter also became a priority. In a stroke of luck, Mary Hunt, a laboratory assistant at the US Northern Regional Research Laboratory, stumbled upon a cantaloupe melon harboring a golden mold. This mold turned out to be P. chrysogenum, and remarkably, it produced 1,000 times more penicillin than Alexander Fleming's penotatum. All of these accidental discoveries and coincidences helped to create the very first antibiotic that went on to save millions of lives. From the mess of Fleming's lab to the rapid production of World War II speeding up the need for supply, and Mary Hunt finding the rotting melon, it created the perfect storm that changed the game of medicine as we know it. What do you think things would be like if penicillin hadn't been accidentally discovered? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're at it. 3. The Declaration of Independence. In 1989, a man visited a flea market in Pennsylvania and a painting caught his eye. It wasn't anything to do with the painting itself because it was pretty drab and uninspiring. However, he really liked the frame that it came with, so he bought the piece for $4. He brought the painting depicting a country scene home with him and immediately took it out of its frame, which he then realized wasn't as ornate and well-made as he'd first thought. But what he found nestled behind the painting and backing board was a folded-up piece of paper, about the same size as an envelope. He unfolded it to find it was a copy of the Declaration of Independence in remarkably good condition. He at first thought it must be a 19th century printing, due to the approximate date of the painting that he found it hidden behind, and decided to keep it as a conversation piece. However, it was upon showing it to a friend in 1991 that the man realized there might be more to the document than he first thought. He got in touch with Sotheby's, whose experts were able to find out that it was an incredibly rare first printing of the Declaration of Independence, of which only 24 copies are known to survive. And of those, only 7 are unbacked like the one that the man found on the back of the painting, increasing its value substantially. The fact that this copy of the Declaration had been so untouched meant that it still had blemishes and errors on it from when it was printed. For example, it had been folded in such a hurry freshly after printing that the ink on the very first line transferred onto the bottom margin, creating a mirror image of it. At the time, it was the 4th copy to resurface in the last 10 years. But what was remarkable about it was the fact that it belonged to an owner who had nothing to do with the original document, as the others had all been handed down through families of the original owners from the 18th century. The copy went up for auction on June 4th, 1991 at the world-famous Sotheby's auction house, where it sold for a record $2.6 million, beating the previous record by a whole $1 million. 2. The microwave. Perry Spencer grew up in humble beginnings in Maine and ended up working at the American Appliance Company at the end of World War I. The company specialized in making missiles and other innovations, including being linked to the Manhattan Project. The company underwent a name change in 1925 to Raytheon Manufacturing Company, and by then Spencer had risen up the ranks despite his low level of education to become one of their top engineers. In World War II, when the company was developing critical solutions to problems faced by US troops, Spencer usually had the answer. He created proximity fuses for artillery shells and helped with the radar technology program at Raytheon. But the main thing that Spencer was passionate about developing was radar magnetrons, which create vibrating magnetic waves, already having earned 2 patents relating to them over the course of his work. In 1946, Spencer was trying to improve the power of the magnetron tubes he was working on, When feeling like a snack break, he pulled the peanut cluster bar out of his pocket to find that it had melted. Many people mistakenly believe that Spencer had a chocolate bar in his pocket that had melted, but according to his grandson Rod, that simply wasn't his go-to snack. After all, still a nature lover from his childhood, the peanut cluster bar was the perfect snack to share with the squirrels and chipmunks on his lunch break. The fact that it was a peanut cluster bar that melted and went all sticky is a lot more indicative of just how powerful these magnetic waves were, as it has a much higher melting point than chocolate. He then did what any reasonable person would do and grabbed an egg from the canteen, placing it underneath the magnetron tube. And it didn't take long before the egg exploded in his face. The following day, he introduced his invention to his colleague by bringing in popcorn kernels and popping them with his new invention. And that's how the microwave was born. 1. Silphion. Imagine a time when a golden flowered plant called Silphion was all the rage in the ancient Mediterranean world, from ancient Greek miracle cures for almost any malady to being a Roman culinary staple, used in almost everything from a simple lentil dish to being paired with flamingo. The plant was so valuable that it was even stored in the imperial treasury of Rome, alongside precious materials such as gold and jewels, and its saplings could fetch a price the same as silver pieces. However, just 700 years after the plant was first discovered, it seemingly disappeared overnight from Cyrenaica, which is now in modern-day Libya. According to the Roman chronicler and historian Pliny the Elder, only one stalk was found in the 1st century AD, and it was seen as so valuable that it was given to the Roman Emperor Nero. Scholars and explorers over the years have been inspired by ancient stories of this plant to go and look for it, with no success, eventually considering it extinct. Although contemporary historians claim that a black rain fell to wipe out the crop, today many believe that it was so popular that it was simply eaten and consumed into extinction. However, by chance and the curiosity of 2 boys, Silphion may just have been rediscovered over 2,000 years later. This discovery has been the life's work of a professor known as Mahmut Miski, who, back in 1983, was led by 2 local boys in the Cappadocia region of Turkey to look at some strange and rather pungent flowers with acrid resin that oozed from their stalks. Miski was quick to realize that it was a part of the Ferula family, but a completely new species of it, which he named Ferula druidiana. It was as Miski was examining the plant in his lab that he started to see that there were a lot of connections and similarities between Ferula druidiana and the long-lost Silphion. For one, it had amazing chemical and medicinal properties, including containing compounds that had contraceptive, anti-inflammatory, and even cancer-fighting qualities, which would make sense if it was seen as a cure-all by the ancient Greeks. Another clue came in the fact that the people who looked after the plants often said that sheep and goats enjoyed eating its leaves, something which linked up with ancient texts about sheep being fattened on Silphion. The pungent sap also seemed to initiate mating behavior in insects around the plants, which Miski found curious, especially given its association in the ancient world with having aphrodisiac qualities. Finally, there was the matter of how the plant grew. Ancient accounts would mention that Silphion would appear almost suddenly after rainfall, and this was something that Miski observed in the Ferula druidiana, as it would spring from the ground after the April showers, up to a height of almost 6 feet in just a few weeks. Miski published his findings in 2021, and it seemed highly plausible that he had indeed found the long-lost plant, although they would need an ancient sample to confirm this fully. But there was still one thing that had not been tested, and that was its use in cuisine. This is where Sally Granger comes in, a food historian who translated the Roman work Apicius, which contains countless recipes that all include Silphion in some shape or form. For someone like Granger, finding Silphion would be like discovering the holy grail of cuisine. So, she and Miski decided to set up a portable kitchen near the plants in Cappadocia so they could finally taste it after 2,000 years. Granger took some of the pearly-colored sap from a thick stalk and added it to some olive oil in a pan. These were the beginning steps of a Roman dressing called laceratum. And as soon as the sap hit the heated oil, the scent it gave off made their mouths water. They finally had as much proof as they could get at the time that Silphion had been found again. However, this created a dilemma for Miski, as there are only around 600 of the plants documented in the area, and unlike other crops and plants, it seemed impossible to cultivate for mass production, something that the ancient world struggled with too. So, it may just be a matter of time before Ferula druidiana gets eaten into extinction once again. Which one of these surprise discoveries amazed you the most? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!